Yeah, Dublin Institute. We're working on a lot of things. So if any of your viewers are wanting to join up, become a member, it would really help.
Hello, Intactivist. Today I have a special guest with me all the way from Australia, Max Roberts. How are you today?
Good, thanks, Potts. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So I'm going to start this off with some fan questions. First off, my audience would like to know, what is your story? How did you become aware of this issue? And what
Uh,
compelled you to do something about it?
right. Well, I've always been against circumcision from as soon as I knew what circumcision was. I didn't have any negative feelings of my own circumcision, but was researching about 12 years ago, back in 2012, and then I read and realized what I'd actually lost, what the foreskin actually does. So I wanted to do something to try and stop circumcision. So I reached out amongst the Australian groups here and found the Aussie Kiwi Intactivists. There was a more active group on Facebook back then. So I got to know a few members, and in that group, I came across a woman who had started up Intact Australia. She founded the chapter here, Alicia. She was organising a fair at the Sydney Baby Fair at the time. So I got involved with her, went up to Sydney, did the fair with her, got involved through other Australian intactivists at the time, so into the movement. But I always been heavily and strongly opposed to circumcision right throughout my whole life. So that's how I got involved with the cause here.
Okay. So what is the state of intactivism in Australia right now?
We have a few organisations. Intact Australia is a grassroots general autonomy organisation. It's a chapter of the Saving Our Sons and the Intact Network, which you would be aware of, and many of your viewers in America would be aware of. We, I post on social media and just on Facebook and do other work fairs and advertising through that. I'm also on the board of the Darwin Institute that originally was Australasian Institute for General Autonomy, AIGA. I'll talk about more about that later, but that we rebranded and it became the Darwin Institute. So they do a lot of work, more on the policy and influencing decision makers at health department and government levels. Also, another intactivist or person who has been doing a lot of work in America and protest work in America, Michael Winnell, came back to Australia and he started Foreskin Revolution. I don't know if you're aware of that organisation or that
A little bit.
group.
A little bit.
Yeah, yeah. So Michael started Foreskin Revolution. He contacted a lot of media, radio personalities, and television. We've done some shows on television for general autonomy. So they're the main three groups in Australia.
All right. So out of those three groups, is there like a poster child of intactivism? Because here for Americans, it's like bloodstained men. When you think of intactivism, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, bloodstained men. That's them. Do you
Okay.
guys have that in Australia?
No, no. We're not hugely into intactivism or the movement because most of our population is intact. We don't have a huge circumcision rate here. I think the rate for infant circumcision under 6 months of age it'd be under 10%, probably about 8 or 9%. And then when you add on child circumcision for older than 6 months, it might bring it up to maybe 12% circumcision rate. So pretty much, every kid, most kids in school or around now would be intact. So it's very odd that you would find a circumcised child. Not only groups like the religious groups, the Jewish and Muslim population, they would be, and some others, but on the whole, Australian kids are intact. So, but we still advocate for those children and babies that would be end up being circumcised in the future. So we advocate for them and try and educate parents about the harms of circumcision still.
All right, so that gives me a couple questions. There's this theory that a lot of intactivists in America have that once rates of circumcision start declining, there's going to be more of a following of intactivism. But from what I'm hearing from your story is that when circumcision rates start going down, intactivists start leaving because now there's no more fight. Is that kind of accurate from your
Mm,
experience?
Not necessarily. There'll always be people advocating for the few. There will always be some children being circumcised. You know, even when the rate is extremely low, there'll still be some being cut. So, and always people that will advocate for them. So we'll always have intactivists and we'll always have people in the cause fighting for them. Also, Australia is not as big in population as America. So we've only got 26 million population in Australia. So we don't have the huge amount of people that America has in this cause. But so we still have, you know, a core group of few intactivists here that advocating for kids. We've got
Okay.
about, in the Aussie Kiwi Intactivist Facebook group, there's about 200, a bit over 200 in that, but only a few core people really are active and post and converse with each other. It's limited to just pretty much about a, you know, handful or a dozen or so core intactivists here in Australia.
All right. So in the past, was the circumcision rates lower or were they higher in Australia?
No, no. I think they probably peaked in the 1950s. That was an era where I was born, and the circumcision rate then was about 80% or more. So it was very common for babies to be circumcised without even asking parents back then. And then in the 1970s, so the 1960s was still fairly high, very high for circumcision. The 1970s, doctors started to discourage it and advise parents not to do it. So that's when it started. It didn't get traction until the 1980s, though, when the rates really fell. And by about the 1980s, 1990s, it was down to about 20%, 20% or so. And then they've slowly sort of gone down more. And in fact, we get our circumcision rate figures from Medicare. So to find out the circumcision rate, it's very difficult to get an accurate figure. But we get our figures from Medicare. Our healthcare providers do figures when parents circumcise their children, they can claim a rebate on Medicare, and that's where we get our figures from. So people who have done surveys or checked the figures in recent years it's been shown that the rates have gone down substantially even in the last few years. So down, it's showing it around about under 10%.
Okay. So when you started, well, how long have you been an intactivist for?
Since about 2012, so for about 12 years.
Okay. So when you started in 2012 to now, has it gotten bigger and better from your experience in Australia, or has it
What
gotten smaller with the
the
groups? Like,
intact
yeah, with the
the
intactivist
intactivist
group in
movement?
Australia. Yes.
Oh, I would say Facebook groups have become less active. I don't think Facebook is an effective tool as much now, and especially I think since the pandemic, a lot of groups have closed or stopped operating and not posting. But we've stayed with those three core organisations. The Darwin Institute has grown and is doing great things, in my opinion, in policy and trying to get messages across to higher levels of government departments and so forth. And we are trying to get Medicare to stop covering circumcisions. That's a main goal of a lot of intactivist organisations in Australia at the moment. Medicare is fraudulently spending money on circumcisions when they shouldn't be. They provide money and rebates for medically necessary surgeries and procedures, which routine non-therapeutic circumcision isn't. So they're paying out money fraudulently for that. So we're trying to get them to stop covering that. So that's one thing. And Foreskin Revolution with Michael, he's stepped back from that a bit at the moment to do his own thing. But yeah, so the main group in Australia at the moment is Darwin Institute.
Okay, so it sounds like you guys are doing a lot of lobbying for your intactivism, correct?
Yes, we're making policies and sending submissions to health department levels where we can. Darwin Institute has also been in contact with lawmakers with with intersex reforms as well. So Canberra, or the ACT, which is our capital territory here, has already passed a law to protect intersex people from surgeries, and Victoria is due to pass that law this year, I think. So we've been in contact with people in Victoria regarding that, the intersex groups, and that's one thing that it's been on our radar and that we've been working on. And yeah, so many other things that we're working on as well that are in the pipeline. So always looking at something.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you guys don't actually have a protesting group at all in Australia, though?
No, no, no. We're not big on protesting. We're more into educating parents and healthcare professionals through having stalls at fairs and advertising. So we're more into that than protesting. However, we have had some activists do a little bit of protesting over the years. I think Jeremy, Intactivist from Adelaide, came across to Melbourne when we had the HIV/AIDS committee or conference many years ago. He came across and protested outside the venue, and he also protested at outside an Oprah event when Oprah was here about skincare products that she uses. So Jeremy is the only person really that I know of who's done a bit of protesting, but we otherwise mainly just educate we can through public education of fairs and stalls.
Okay.
But Intact Australia has done a few. When I took over from Alicia, who started Intact Australia, I started advertising in parenting magazines. I've got some here that I can show you. So, like the Nurture magazine, we have like advertising full page ads like that, and oh, this is another kids voice newspaper. We were advertising quite a bit at one stage. The woman in charge of advertising, she was fantastic. She would put in a whole page advertisements, myth busting the health benefits of circumcision. So that was a whole page with functions of the foreskin, the addressing the supposed health benefits of circumcision and putting them into perspective. So we were able to get a lot of exposure for Intact Australia through magazine advertising. And I think because of that, we still do get emails from parents asking for advice. We've had parents email us when they've taken their young son to a doctor because he's had a red or inflamed foreskin, and the doctor has said, "Oh, he needs to be circumcised." Well, they've contacted us, for because they've been suspicious of that. So we've given them proper advice, and as far as we know, we've saved many children from being circumcised through proper advice instead of them listening to the doctors. Yes, we've got a problem with some doctors here in Australia as well at the moment. So although many doctors are against circumcision, or was 98, 99% of Australian doctors are against circumcision. When something goes wrong or there's an issue, they're still very quick to jump to circumcision instead of alternative treatment. So we're trying to address that too.
Okay, so I'm curious if the Australian circumcision and the American circumcision, is it the same type of circumcision? Or
Uh, the main method of circumcision here is the plastibell. I don't think that the Gomco clamp is used much anymore. It was the Gomco clamp was used a lot back in the 50s and 60s, but now it's pretty much plastibell that's used. So it's still nasty.
okay, but they're not trying to save as much as they can because I heard in Europe that they try to do the least invasive circumcisions that they can. That could be a rumor though, I'm not sure, but okay.
I don't think you can have a least invasive circumcision. It still cuts the foreskin off
Yeah.
and still does the damage.
All right, so does your group or any other intactivist group in Australia, do you guys ever collab with any foreign intactivists?
Yes, there was at one stage, Michael Winnell, he started Foreskin Revolution, but then it evolved into a global venture where it ended up being a group called ICASM, which was a global thing where he would have Zoom meetings each week with 15 Square and Intaction and Intact Denmark and all of the various organisations around the world. And ICASM rebranded or changed its name to the Bodyguards. That was quite a few years ago. So that was a variation of all the different intactivist organisations and gender autonomy organisations around the world at one stage. Darwin Institute are working with 15 Square or partnering with 15 Square at the moment with organising men's groups or care for circumcised men who are having just to deal with their circumcision and sort of psychological care for the circumcised men. There are a lot of men who are upset emotionally about being circumcised and have trouble with that. So they have group meetings and more a forum. Right. So I was saying that the Darwin Institute have partnered with 15 Square for men affected by circumcision and their feelings and grief around that. So for them to have a space to talk about that. So 15 Square are holding meetings on that at the moment, and we can direct members of Darwin Institute to join the meetings. We're working on similar projects to hold those meetings here at the moment. So it's something that Darwin Institute is working on at the moment. Yeah, Darwin Institute, we're working on a lot of things. So if any of your viewers are wanting to join up, become a member, it would really help, even if they would like to join up to get updates on what we're doing, they can check out the Darwin Institute website.
Oh, also give me updates too. If you give me updates, I can go in the news, and then people can get that like once a week.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Yes, check out the website.
Okay, awesome. So, question, I don't know if you know this or not, that's cool if you don't. So it was reported to me that the bodyguards and Droy au Corps, the French group, um,
Right.
the, do they have an issue with each other? Because I was told that the bodyguards are aggressive towards the French group, and I don't know how true that is. And I was wondering if you could debunk that.
Oh, not that I've heard. Bodyguards, that's an overall group. So it's made up of all groups around the world. So it's not, the bodyguards is not from a particular country. So it's a collaboration of all groups globally, so, which the Troyes or the French group.
I don't know either. You're good, yeah.
Which they are a part of the bodyguards as well. Or they were, but I don't think that the bodyguards are doing anything at the moment. I think they stopped being active years ago at the start of the pandemic. I don't think it's a thing at the moment. I know that I have a French friend, and I know that he was translating a brochure for them from French into English. But yeah, so that was one project that we were working on together. But yeah, no, I think they're fine.
That was Max Roberts' Part 1 interview. Let me know what you thought of it by commenting down below. I will have all his links down below in the description so you can check out the Darwin Institute and more. Please give this a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss Part 2. Thank you guys for hanging out with me and Max. It was an awesome time.